Hello everyone and welcome to the first game we'll be showing from round 8. This is the Armageddon game between Wei Yi and Magnus Carlsen. If you remember, in the first half of the tournament, it was round 3. Wei Yi defeated Magnus with black in Armageddon. And now Magnus will, of course, very gladly do the same. If possible, classical game was over pretty much before it began. Wei Yi didn't, he said in the interview, he didn't feel like playing. He lost yesterday and... yeah, he didn't even spend all that much time, 20 minutes. Magnus spent 13 minutes for the entire classical game, and both players get 2 hours. So, yeah, they drew fairly quickly in a very known line of the Ruy Lopez, and now we enter the Armageddon. So let's check it out. Wei Yi has the white pieces, and he opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5 and bishop to c4. So Wei Yi is saying, okay, no Ruy Lopez here. We're going for the bishop's opening, and Magnus is fond of the bishop's opening himself. He tends to play it online, so he knows the ins and outs. We have knight to f6, d3. Pawn to c6, preparing pawn to d5. We have knight to f3, but now bishop to e7. Probably as Wei Yi is expecting d5, so Magnus waits with it. Castles kingside and pawn to d6. We have pawn to c3 and knight b to d7. We have rook to e1. As you can see, both players playing pretty much instantly. Knight to f8 by Magnus, and now Wei Yi goes queen to b3. And here he invested some 2 minutes in this move, as why wouldn't you? Play c3, you have a bishop on c4, like for example in the Evans Gambit, you go after the f7 pawn. Magnus goes knight to e6, and now there is a game where d4 was played right away. No, where bishop captures on e6 was played right away. It's even the top move recommended by the engine. You capture, and then after f captures, you play pawn to d4. But here Wei Yi goes for pawn to d4 right away, and it is now, as of move 9, that we have a completely new game. Magnus goes queen to c7, we have knight b to d2, and castles kingside. And now, the engine here gives something like knight to f1, knight to e3, or maybe bishop to d3, but Wei Yi, in the style of true attackers, go bishop to f1. And the engine deems it an inaccuracy. However, you know, if you've watched games of Paul Morphy or Bobby Fischer or, you know, any of the great attackers, you know that bishop to f1 is a very elegant move, and somehow this bishop always comes in handy, even on f1, you know, just as a defender, but it can easily be brought back into the attack via d3, c4, or whatever you need. So rook to e8, and now pawn to a4. Okay, we have pawn to a5, knight to c4, eyeing that b6 square, and we have e captures on d4. Now, Wei Yi does not recapture right away. First he goes knight to b6, attacks the rook, so rook to b8, and now he recaptures. C captures on d4, we have bishop to d8 by Magnus, threatening queen captures on b6, and knight captures on c8. We have rook captures, and now bishop to d2. Just developing the bishop, preparing to bring the rooks into the game. Queen to b6, offering a queen trade, and Wei Yi declines. Queen to d3, he keeps the queens on the board, and he offers Magnus the b2 pawn. But if you capture the b2 pawn, then rook a to b1, and good luck getting that queen out of the game. Out of harm's way. For example, if you go queen to a2, then you can even repeat, and after queen to b1, then you can go rook e to b1, and that's pretty much it. No more squares for the black queen. So after queen d3, pawn to d5 was played by Magnus, and while you could capture, and probably it's even best, Wei Yi just grabs more space, because with 3 minutes on the clock, it's better to control more space, regardless of what the engine says. Knight to e4 by Magnus, and now bishop to e3. And objectively, this is an equal position. Magnus can be very happy with what he got. Bishop to e7, and now rook e to d1. We have rook e to d8 and queen to b1 now. Preparing to bring the bishop into the game, and also maybe to advance that b pawn. But Magnus just plays pawn to c5. He goes after Wei Yi's strong center. Bishop to b5, otherwise maybe even pawn to c4 is happening, and then the bishop will be completely locked in. So the bishop comes alive, bishop to b5, and now c captures on d4. We have knight captures, and the bishop captures, attacking the queen on b6. We have bishop to c5 and queen to d3, just adding more defenders to that d4 bishop. We have pawn to g6 by Magnus and queen to e3. Now, again, on pinning, so also you want to put more pressure here, and maybe if the position allows it, somehow you could also get the queen over to the king side. Here we have bishop captures on d4, rook captures on d4, and now knight to g5. It's a very tricky move by Magnus because the knight cannot be captured. The rook on d4 would hang. So queen back to d2. So Wei Yi probably just avoids the queen trade and prepares to capture on d5. And interestingly, best for Magnus would be to just play knight to e6. You give up the d5 pawn, for example, captures, captures, and captures, and you go for the attack. You go after the f2 pawn, and then if Wei Yi defends, you capture on b2. It's equal material, but you have a rook on the second rank. Maybe, you know, regardless of what the engine says, it is a little bit easier to play with black. However, Magnus went for the blunder of the century, so to say. He played rook to c2, and there's a problem with this. Remember when we said that you cannot capture the knight because the rook was hanging? Well, if you capture the knight, the rook on d8 is also hanging if the queen moves now that the other rook left the back rank. So what do you play here? Well, Magnus... rather, Wei Yi played the queen captures on g5, and now you can't capture on d4. You're going to lose the rook on d8 with check. So Magnus committed fully. He played rook captures on f2, and now Wei Yi said, okay, I could capture on f2, and then you capture with check, and then I go to g3. I'm up a piece, so probably I'm winning, but I don't need all of that. Queen captures on d8 with check. Wei Yi gives up the queen, and there is nothing more that Magnus can do here. We're going to give this move a double exclamation mark, as, I mean, it is beautiful. Queen captures on d8, and now king captures on f2. And now Wei Yi, with two rooks and the bishop versus the queen, is completely winning. It is an open board, so maybe Magnus can get some sort of a perpetual. Maybe if he gets those pawns marching down the board, of course, anything can happen. So he's not just going to resign. And he has the black pieces. If he gets a perpetual, then he wins the match. So he goes queen c7. Okay, we have rook captures on d5. Wei Yi has to make sure not to blunder anything. Queen to b6 check. We have king to e2, and now queen to e6, attacking the rook. So just rook a to d1, and everything is defended. The rooks are defending each other. This is defended. This is defended. Not a lot of targets for Magnus, but he has to look for them. Queen to f5. We have rook 1 to d4, and now queen to c2 with check. Going after the b2 pawn, we have king to f3, and now Magnus just improves the position a little bit. He will try to hide his king because that f7 pawn is on a light square. You will never be able to defend it, so it's only a matter of time before Wei Yi goes after it. We have pawn to h3, pawn to h5, and now rook to d7. Wei Yi preparing to go after the f7 pawn. g5, Magnus gaining a lot of space here in front of that white king, so maybe, you know, maybe he can get something. It's hard to even, you know, envision what could go wrong for black. You know, somehow, I don't know, it's a very hard to say. It would have to be like a, you know, perfect blunder from Wei Yi. We have bishop to c4, just going after f7, as that's all he has to do. We have queen to f5 check, king to e2, and now queen captures on e5 check. King to d1, we have queen to h2, and rook 4 to d6. You could capture on f7 right away. Wei Yi just prevents the black king from escaping, because he knows that he will be able to hide his king on a2, and that will be all there is. So Magnus goes queen to g1 check, king to c2, he even captures on g2 with check, king to b3, and now king to f8, but there's nothing you can do. Rook captures on f7 by Wei Yi, king to e8, and now you could do a lot of things, but Wei Yi finishes it in the most efficient way, and that is rook to g6. This was played, and he was in this position on move 47 that Magnus Carlsen resigned to the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Once you give one check, queen g3 check, the king will come to a2, and that's it. No more checks, no more nothing. Next move is just gonna be rook to g8 checkmate. So yeah, beautifully played by Wei Yi, taking down Magnus like this. Like I said, he said in an interview that he wasn't really all that interested in playing the classical. He just wanted to get a quick draw and focus on Armageddon. Worked out very well for him, but yeah, Magnus wasn't nearly as upset with losing this one as he was against Gukesh. He just, you know, he didn't believe it. Like, you know, I don't know if you've seen the interview with Magnus yesterday, where he just said, I mean, it was really, an outstanding moment. He said something in the sense of, you know, why am I doing this? What's it all for? I mean, so yeah. Tough break for Magnus, but you know, beautifully played by Wei Yi. He gave him a chance, and Wei Yi took advantage of it. So we're gonna cover the other games as well, and only then we will go over the standings and what we can expect from the other 2 rounds. But yeah, great game by Wei Yi. Hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Robert Arthun, Carlos Salinas, London Initiative for Safe AI, Ricardo Paulin, and Richard Schwartz for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.